Hello, welcome back to another video. Today looks a little bit different than my typical videos. Today we are going to be talking all about my favorite books that I have ever read. So I've got my coffee and I'm ready to walk through all of these books. Okay, I'm first going to start off with my series. I have 3 series that I compiled that are just series that I absolutely love and would really do anything to be able to go back and read. So first, we are starting with Harry Potter. I read the Harry Potter series a couple years ago and I just ate them up. Though I will say, with series this long, sometimes you do need to trickle in a few other books in between. I had seen all the movies before reading all the books, so I knew what I was in for, but the books are just so good and they're so, like, they're lighthearted, and I just cannot wait to have these books for the rest of my life because they are just great. They're great books. Now, this next series, I am sure you know, you love, you've probably read them, and if you haven't, you must. And that is the Throne of Glass series. Now, I don't actually have the Throne of Glass book here because Brooks is currently reading it. Now, this series, I would literally do anything to be able to experience it again. And knowing people who haven't read the series, I am so jealous because truly, to be able to experience this book again, I literally have no words. It is so freaking good. Basically, the whole series is about an assassin, and you basically are just along for the journey of her life. And Sarah J. Maas really knew how to do it. I will say, I started with the Throne of Glass series for Sarah J. Maas, and I have not read any of her other series because I pretty much decided that I only read series that are complete, because if I wait too long in between books, I completely forget what they're about and any details. Okay, for the last series that I have picked out, this is honestly probably my favorite series. Well, I don't know. I can't pick a favorite one of all time. It's probably between this one and Throne of Glass, but that is the Mind Blank series. And it is 5 novellas in one book, and I tell literally everyone to read this. It basically is about a girl and a guy who fall in love. She is basically a killer, a serial killer, and he is an investigator, police officer, and it's just so good, and I really recommend it. Okay, this next book you also have probably read and have heard about a lot, which is The Nightingale by Kristen Hanna. And this book is about 2 sisters in World War II, and you kind of just hear about their life. It is gut-wrenching, it is sad, it is so good. Kristen Hanna is just such an amazing, brilliant author. And I did have a little bit of a difficult time getting into this book, but that quickly changed with the story. But I feel like naturally with a lot of like World War II or history books, I really enjoy them a lot of the time, but it just takes a little bit longer to get into, I feel like. Next, we have The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. And this book is about a girl who wants to die, and she basically goes to the Midnight Library where she gets to see into all of the possible lives she could have lived. Like, if this is just a random example, but if she would have stayed with one boyfriend, what would her life have looked like? If she would have became a rock star, what would her life have looked like then? And so on and so forth. And I think that it's just like a very, very impactful book and makes you think about life and how you specifically should view life and want to view life. And I loved this one. And I think about it pretty often. This next book also goes along the thinking about life train. And this is a nonfiction book, which is The Defining Decade by Meg Jay. And it's basically about it's literally why 30 is not the new 20. And it goes through so many conversations you have, living with a partner, dating, your career, love. It talks about so many different things and why you should maximize on your 20s instead of using your 20s as the time to party and do all these things that basically is setting your life up for success till your 30s, because you should be using your 20s to set your life up for success. I read this book to Brooks over FaceTime my senior year of college when he was graduated already. But I really loved this book. I loved all of these books, so I can stop saying that. Okay, next up we have Daisy Jones and the Six by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And I read this book in a day, and this is one of the very few books that I have ever read in a day. I actually think maybe it's the only book I've ever read in one sitting, because this book I started in the morning and I finished it that night because it was simply so good. And it's basically about a band. You've probably either read it or seen the show, but if you haven't, I love Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. I've read quite a few of hers, but this one is definitely my favorite of hers, though I do love Malibu Rising, but I think this one takes the cake for me. And I have not yet read some of her newer ones, but I love this one. Then we have Love and Other Words by Christina Lauren. This is one of the few books I have truly sobbed my eyes out from. I finished this book and could not stop crying. And that is very rare, especially when it comes to books for me. But this book is basically childhood friends to lovers, and it evoked so much emotion. One thing that I really love about this book, and about a lot of the books on here, is alternating timelines. I'm a big fan of that because I love trying to put the pieces together and see how everything fits. It's like a puzzle. Now, this next book is the book that truly got me into reading, which would be The Woman in the Window by A.J. Finn. Now, if you've seen the movie, it's terrible, but the book is so good. I wonder if I would feel the same way about it if I reread it, which is why I don't really want to reread it, because I want to remember it as such an amazing, suspenseful, wonderful book. It's basically about a girl who lives in a house and she kind of keeps to herself. One night she sees something that shouldn't happen outside her window, and then it's suspenseful and you figure out what happens in the end. The next book is The Great Believers by Rebecca Makkai, and this book is basically about the AIDS epidemic, and you're following two different people. You're following a guy in like the 1980s, and then you're following a gal in, I think, 30 years later, so in like the 2000s, tracking down her daughter, and you see how their stories intertwine. And I just think that this is a story I feel like I wouldn't normally pick up, but it was so interesting and I really want to reread it actually, because I remember in the end being so surprised. I also read this for school, which was in college, which was really fun that I ended up loving it so much. Now, the last book I have is my most recent 5-star book, which is Wild Dark Shore. This book is about a girl, a woman who washes ashore to an island that basically is a seed bank, and there is the Salt family who's taking care of the seeds, and it's basically like every seed in the whole world, which is a seed bank, is an actual real thing that we have in the world. But basically this woman washes ashore and we don't know why. We figure out why. The family there doesn't know why. I love how deep we got to connect with all of the kids. There's like 2 teenagers and one, I believe he's 9, and then a single dad, and it is so sad. It is literally so sad, but it is literally so good. And yeah, those are my favorite books that I've ever read. And I can't wait to find more favorite books. And this was a very, very different video for me, so bear with me because I love to read, but it is harder to articulate why you love a book because there's so much feeling that comes from it that with a lot of these books, a lot of my favorite books I've read quite a while ago. Not all of them, obviously, but some of them I read quite a while ago, so it's harder to remember the specific details of why I loved the book so much versus the feeling that it gave me. And all of these books gave me such a crazy feeling, which is why I'm pretty sure most, if not all of them, are 5-star. Maybe a little less in this series, but yeah. Thank you so much for joining me, and I love talking about books, and I want to make more book videos because I think they're so fun and they're like one of my favorite types of videos to watch. So thanks for joining, and I will talk to you in the next video. Bye.